Welcome everyone. Welcome to Vintage Page Designs. It's Thursday morning, May the 4th. Not even going to make the joke that everyone is talking about today. But welcome to our weekly Facebook Live. Today, I'm going to be taking your questions all about the 5-day challenge and what kind of supplies you need. So for those of you who do not know what a 5-day challenge is, this is something we've been doing now for about 3 years, I think, several times a year. We have a 5-day challenge, and within those 5 days, you make at least one book. This time you're going to be making 3 books, but never fear. And we take you step by step through the process of creating possibly your first book or maybe even your 50th book. I don't know. But that's what a 5-day challenge is. From start to finish, from day 1 to day 5, you'll come away with at least one fully made book. And we've been doing it for a while, and they're lots of fun. And if you haven't already signed up, please do. The link is down below. So the current 5-day challenge, let's just review the dates. They are May 22nd to May 26th, which is a Monday to Friday. And then on the 28th, which is the Sunday, we have a wrap-up party, which is awfully fun, with lots of giveaways and a wrap-up video of all of your books. So those are the dates. Mark your calendar. One of the big questions we always get is how long do you have access to those videos? And I can tell you, you have lifetime access to those videos. If you are a book club member, you receive it for free. But let's just say you leave the book club for whatever reason, you still will own the challenges that you have. So if you've paid for it or you've been gifted the challenge, you have lifetime access for it. It will always stay in your product library or your library of classes, however you want to think about it. So lifetime access. So please don't worry if you're away on vacation or you need to refer to it later, which hopefully you will. But our hope is that you will join us live if you possibly can, because it's a lot of fun to do it together. How much is the challenge? We try to keep the cost very reasonable. The cost currently is $10. But because we're doing 3 books this time, the price will go up to $15, but that won't be until next Monday, which is May 8th. So get in by May 8th if you want to get that $10 price. So that is the cost. If you are an existing Handmade Book Club member or you have joined in the last few days, few weeks, you do receive it for free. So if for any reason you've purchased it by mistake, you can reach out to us here and we will get you a refund on that. But just remember that if you're a book club member and you pay the $25 per month subscription fee, you do receive the challenges for free. What else do I need to remind you of before I get into all your questions? If you need to log in, that's where you go, handmadebookclub.com, and then there is a login button in the top left or right, but there's also a big blue button in the center of the screen. That is where you log in if you've purchased the challenge and you can't find the link. And if you've forgotten your password, no worries, just click forgot password. Just make sure that you use the right email address, because many of us have a couple different email addresses. I'm guilty of that too. So make sure you get the right email address. And if you don't know, just reach out to us, help@vintagepagedesigns.com. We are here to help you. And you will probably hear from Amber, who is here helping me on the call today. You'll probably hear from Amber or from Mickey, and they will get you whatever you need. Okay, what else do I need to tell you? So one of the big questions that we have had, and I'm hoping to get some input from those of you who are here live on the call or who are watching the recording, is where do you buy your supplies? So within the supply list, I have included some links to my favorite places, such as I like getting craft text on Amazon or from C&T Publishing. I've included a link to where I buy my leather. I often buy a lot of things from Dick Blick, sort of online art supply stores. But please look in your stash to see what you already have. You might have an old handbag you can cut up. You might have some lovely thick paper you want to use as a cover. You might already have some paper that you can use for the pages inside. You may already have embroidery floss. You maybe just need to get some beeswax. So please look in your stash before you go shopping. Then try shopping in your local art supply stores or in Michael's. You're going to find, each store varies depending on what location it is, but you may find things there, or you can use the resources that we give you. But if you are watching live or watching the recording, please feel free to put in the comments your favorite sources, particularly if you're in a different country like Canada or in New Zealand or the UK. I know you sometimes have more difficulty in finding suppliers, so please, I would love to know in the comments what you would suggest to folks. So let's kind of crowdsource places to find supplies. Okay, I have a list of questions that I'm going to answer, and then I will be more than happy to take any questions that come up live. We will get through as many as we possibly can in the 1 hour. Before I start, let me just show you some examples of the books we'll be making. You've probably all seen these leather versions of the 3 books. These 3 right here, they're in all the photos. I also made a little set in Craftex like this. These ones do not have the wraparound cover. They just have a flush cover, whereas these leather ones have the wraparound cover. You can see that. So I made 3 from Craftex. This is washed Craftex, and it's in these neutral colors, which you can buy. I also made a set from cork fabric as well. So this is a cork fabric. These have a wraparound cover, you can see. And if you're interested in what the closures are, one of the closures is a button with elastic, like that. Another one of the closures is a wraparound cord, like that. And then the other closure is a little tab like that. So you're going to learn 3 different closures as well as 3 different stitches. So let me pop these away and let's get to your questions. Oh, I've got a big box of them. Let's put them down here in case I need them again. All right. The questions are, first of all, what can I use for my cover? So leather or faux leather you can use, and that leather can be recycled. Often recycled leather is very thin. So it's from a leather jacket, or it's from, honestly, I know several folks who have found couches on the side of the road or at their local dump or tip or whatever you call it, transfer station, and they've literally pulled the leather off, but it tends to be fairly thin. So in a minute, I'm going to show you how to line it with fabric to make it thicker. You could also do the same if you want to buy vinyl from the craft store. You have some vinyl and you find it's too thin, or any kind of leather, you can line it with fabric. I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute when we switch cameras. Craftex, obviously, something I talk about all the time. And in last week's video, I did a whole session on Craftex, answering sort of common questions. You can use cork fabric. Try to find the cork fabric that is backed with fabric. You can often find cork, which is thin and it's just got like adhesive on the back, but there is something called cork fabric. It's cork on the front and then it has this kind of soft fabric-y stuff on the back. So you want to look for that. And I've included a link to a resource, but again, please feel free to drop in the comments any favorite resources you have. And paper could also be used for the cover, and canvas or any kind of thick fabric. It will be a lot more tricky. Someone asked about 2mm felt. That could also be used. But if you're a beginner, I would not use canvas or felt. I would stick with one of the other things. Maybe try it in paper first to practice. And then once you're comfortable, move on to the felt or the canvas. I'm just checking to make sure there's, Amber doesn't need to tell me anything. Okay. Can you use paper for the cover is a question I'm getting a lot. And I would say yes, but you want to make sure it's nice and thick. So you could use £140 watercolor paper. If you wanted to use a mixed media paper, that's maybe £98. I would glue 2 pieces together. And the nice thing about gluing 2 pieces of paper or lining, say, something with fabric is then it's double-sided. I mean, obviously, you can make both sides the same, but a double-sided book is really kind of nice. So when I show you how to line the fabric with the leather with fabric, the method for gluing 2 pieces of paper is going to be exactly the same. So you can watch and learn. All right, I'm going to switch my camera around. Amber, is there anything desperately that I need to address before I switch over to show them about the leather? Okay, excuse me, I'm a little drink there. Okay, let me switch this over. All right, here we go. So yesterday morning, I took a piece of, let me show it to you. I took a piece of this leather. I have these samples from a shoe factory. If you've been following me for a while, you'll recognize it. But I really like them. To be honest, it's thick enough that it doesn't need lining with fabric, but I obviously want to show you as an example, and I think it's really attractive. So this is the front, and then here is the back, where I've glued on this really pretty floral. What you want to remember is that you want a, sorry, I know this is going in and out a little bit. I don't think it's going to lock. What you want to remember is you need 100% cotton. You don't want anything that's stretchy. So you want something that's 100% cotton. A quilting cotton is fine. I like to cut it slightly bigger. If you have any stickers on the back, you want to remove any stickers from the back of the leather. And then once it's dry, you're going to remove the excess fabric. So I'm going to go in with a quilting ruler and a, what's this called, rotary cutter, and cut off the excess. There we go. Make sure your blade is nice and sharp, and then you won't get any fraying, or you'll get less fraying. If you're very concerned about fraying, you could add a fray check, but I never ever do, and I've never had any problems. The key is to make sure that this blade is super sharp. So there is my double-sided piece of leather. That will look really cute as a book, right? Let me show you how I did it. It's really very simple. Let me just, where is that? Let me just grab this, my supplies. Here we are. So I use PVA, just regular old, I have a gallon of PVA. Any other white glue, if you've got Elmer's or something, that would be fine. If you live in Arizona or somewhere very dry, you may want to use wheat paste, because that'll extend your drying time. And you can get a paper plate, a plastic plate. I just use a piece of wax paper, and I put a bit on there. You could also, probably a bit much. You could also use a roller kind of tray, like a little paint tray, if you want to. And what I use is a foam roller. This is about, how many inches? 2 inches. 2-inch foam roller from the hardware store. Very inexpensive. And what I do is I place, you can put down more wax paper or a silicone mat, which is what I've got here. This is, honestly, this is a baking silicone mat from Amazon. It's nothing special. It's not one of Tim Holtz or anything. It's thin. And I don't spend a lot of money on them because I tend to cut them by mistake. So they're often ruined. So I don't spend a lot of money on these. They're just, I don't have a link, but they're just from the baking section. And what you want to do is apply the glue to the leather. If we apply the glue to the fabric, it might seep through, even though this is quite tightly woven, but it will absorb a lot more of the glue. So you want to put the glue on the leather, make sure there's no bits on here or anything, and just go in with a roller and put a nice even layer all the way up to the edge. If you don't have a roller or you don't want to get one, you could use a bigger brush, like a 3 or 4 inch brush. Trying not to let this move. And I will say these foam rollers do soak up a lot of glue. So if you're low on PVA, you might just want to use an Elmer's or something. This is using up a ton. But you want a good even coat, and you want it all the way up to the edge. I'm actually going to need more glue. Can you believe it? Well, maybe not actually. Maybe that's fine. Oops, there we go. Nice even coat of glue. Set that to one side. Let's get rid of this dirty one. And then to put my fabric right side facing up. Lay this on top. I'm going to smooth it out with my hands, and then I'm going to go in with, I could go in with a bone fold if I wanted to make sure that there are no bubbles. I want to make sure the edges are really firmly glued down, and I'm going to go in with a rubber braid just because I have one right here. And then you do need to leave this overnight. So what I do is I put another silicone mat over the top. I generally just kind of wrap it in a silicone mat like this, and then put lots of heavy bricks or books, or I have a big old litho stone which I put on the top. And then once it's dry, completely dry, you trim it up like I showed you earlier. Now you would do exactly the same method with paper. So say you had this paper and you know it's a little on the thin side for a book cover, you would take two of the thinner pieces and glue them together. So that would be really fun to have like a different color on the inside. But again, exactly the same method. You want, they can be the same size, but you want this to be bigger than your final book cover. So you want to cut this down afterwards. So glue two pieces which are larger. These are like 9 by 12, and then you can cut them down later. So you can make some really nice combinations of different papers. So, and it doesn't have to be handmade paper. Like I say, it could be some decorated mixed media paper that you've done. Perhaps you've done Liz Constable's Died and Gone to Heaven class, or got her book and got some really gorgeous papers. Maybe you've got some eco prints, but you think they're not quite thick enough. Join two pieces together, just how I did with a roller, nice, thin, even layer. Press it down and leave overnight, and you should be good. Okay, let me see what other questions we have. Let's see. I'm going to talk about signature wrappers now. We've had a lot of signature wrapper questions, and also I will talk about paper grain. So what is a signature wrapper? A signature wrapper is when you, well, first of all, a signature, so I'm just getting my books. A signature is when you gather together pages and fold them and then create like a grouping like this. This is a signature right here. And if you put something else around it, so here's my white paper signature, and then I've put another piece of paper around it. In this case, it's a pink one. This is a blue one. Here's a pink one. Here's a blue one. So this is a full signature wrapper. Why do we do this? Well, because they're pretty and we like them. It's a way to show off our artwork. It's a way to add interest to a book. Also, when you have your spine peeking through, like we will in this running stitch one, it's a nice way to add some interest to the spine. It's also a nice way to thicken up the signature as well, to reduce the size of the gap inside. So you can do what's called a full signature wrap like this, so it goes all the way around, or you can do a partial one, which would look like this. So this is a partial signature wrap, so just a little strip, and you can, when we come to do it, you can glue them down. So this is very thin paper, so I glued it down, whereas this was thicker paper and I didn't glue it down. You can also use them to add pockets and things as well, but we won't get into that now. So what kind of paper can you use for signature wrappers? Really pretty much anything. This was super thin. I think the glue is coming away, but you can see that's fairly thin. You can use something thin like an origami paper, handmade paper, even deli paper, and then you can glue it down. You can use something the same thickness as your signature, like a text weight paper, or you can go nice and thick like this. This is a slightly thicker paper. Then this is another book with an even thicker signature wrapper like that. That's much thicker. So really the world's your oyster, and you know, we use them to, like I say, add interest and find great ways to showcase your artwork in addition to doing it on the cover, you know, on the inside as well. Those are signature wrappers. Okay, I have piles of things here now, and I need to clear some space. Amber, are there any big questions you want me to answer? Not yet. So, great question from Marion. I bought the leather you recommended. Should I add fabric? And will that two-sided fabric stuff, don't remember the name, work? So if you bought the leather from Springfield Leather, you do not need to line it. It's thick enough, but if you want to line it, you can. So if you would like to, so this is how it looks on the inside. So if you want to add something, you absolutely can, but it would be purely decorative. Well, that's two-sided fabric stuff. I don't remember the name. I'm not quite sure what that is. So if you could let me know what the two-sided fabric stuff is, I would be happy to answer that. But yes, you don't have to, Marion. Anything else, Amber? The great question here from Rosie. The supply list has 3 pieces of cover material that you can cut down to 6.5 tall by 12 inches wide. Is that for 1 book or for 3? It's for 3. Each book cover, here's 1 book cover, is 6.25 inches tall, and it starts out at 12 inches long. We will cut it down, but 1 piece equals 1 book cover. So if you only want to make 1 book, then just have 1 piece, but yeah, it will be for 3, Rosie. Anything else? Do we need to add fabric to craft text? No, Kate, you do not need to add fabric to craft text. You could if you wanted to, but here's a craft text book. It's very sturdy without it. So I wouldn't if I were you. I think it would just make your life more difficult. But great question, Kate. Will stone fabric work? Asked Jan. I have never worked with stone fabric, so I don't know. You tell me. Yeah, no idea. So if anyone knows in the comments, if anyone is an experienced bookmaker here and you have worked with stone fabric, could you please give Jan some advice? I would love to know what that's like. I'll do a little research for you into stone fabric, but off the top of my head, I don't know, I'm afraid. Are we good? Okay. All right, the next question that I have been asked a lot is, what type of paper should I use for my book? Is there a right or wrong paper? And no, there's not. So when you're choosing paper for the inside of your book, I've been using a drawing paper, and the reason I use drawing paper is because I like to work with drawing paper. So you just need to ask yourself, what am I going to do with my paper? Am I going to write on it? Am I going to do watercolor on it? Am I going to collage on it? Am I going to do calligraphy on it? Think about what you will do with those pages, and then you can make a decision, a more informed decision about the paper that you're going to use. If it's going to be a gift for someone, I would just go middle of the road and do a mixed media paper or a sort of 80-pound drawing paper, and I would keep it plain. So that kind of gives you, or the recipient, plenty of options. Think about what type of book you will be making. If this is a very, very special gift, you may want to use paper that's more expensive. If this is just going to be everyday gift, or you're just going to use it yourself, you're going to throw it in your bag, or it's like just your sample, don't spend a ton of money on the paper. Just go for something, a pad of paper from the craft store. And I really do encourage you to use what you have already on hand, particularly if it's the first one, because remember, as my friend Andrea says, first not only, this could be the first of many books that you're going to make. So the first one doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have the perfect paper or cover. Just do a practice one and then take it from there. And also, you know, you need to keep in mind your budget. Question I get asked a lot is, can I use watercolor paper for the pages? And I would say absolutely. Try to get a good quality watercolor paper if you can, with as higher cotton content as you can afford. And you'll know that it's got a high cotton content because it'll be slightly softer. So the pads, the inexpensive pads that you can buy, often crack when you fold them, but if they've got more cotton content, they tend to crack a lot less. And then if you're using 140-pound paper, which is heavy, you may only be doing like 4 pages per signature. and in which case you're only going to need 4 sheets of 12 inches tall by 9 inches wide. I would suggest if you want to do watercolor paper, maybe do a 90 pound. I feel like 140 is going to be fairly thick and heavy to work with. And what you want to do is when you are cutting down and folding your papers on the very first day, you don't have to do it ahead of time, you're going to make sure that the grain of your watercolor paper is running parallel to the spine. And then that is the other question that I've been asked a lot, and we've included a video link down below all about paper grain, but I do get a lot of questions about, well, thank you very much telling me about paper grain, but I don't actually know what you're talking about, or how to figure it out. So if you are concerned about the grain of your paper, you are going to want to, there are 3 ways to figure it out. First of all, you're going to bend it like this. You're going to bring the short sides and the long sides together. And then you'll be able to feel less resistance in one direction and more resistance in the other. There's less resistance for me in this direction, which means the paper fibers are running this way, which means they're going to be parallel to the spine of my book. Another way to tell is if you have a spare piece of paper, if I fold against the grain, it tends to crack. I don't know if you can see that. It cracks a little bit. If I fold with the grain, it folds a lot more smoothly, which will be helpful because if you happen to go against the grain, which is not the end of the world, nothing's bad is going to happen. What will happen is it might spring open. Your pages might spring open. But that's why we put closures on, so that if we do get the grain wrong, no one's going to know, apart from us. And then the other way that you can tell which way your paper fibers are going is if you have a spare piece, you can spritz it with water. Let me just spritz this. And then it bends in the direction of the grain. So this way, which is what we suspected. So those are the 3 ways you can tell the grain of the paper. If you're concerned about craft text, where is my craft text? The washed craft text does not have a grain. I've tried and it really does not have a grain. Whereas if you buy the smooth, unwashed craft text, which is pretty delicious, I will tell you, it does have a grain, and you'll be able to tell immediately because you can see it cracks and it's awfully hard to bend. Whereas with the grain, it folds nicely. Like that, you get a nice smooth fold. But most of you will be buying packs of the 8.5 by 11 craft text, which is all pre-washed, particularly these bright colors. And even if you get a roll, most of them are pre-washed, so you don't have to worry about it. Also, if you're working with handmade paper of any kind, you don't need to worry about the paper grain. We only worry about paper grain in paper that's been manufactured, which is, oh, look at this, it's a mess now, which is the ones that you get in the pads of paper. But yeah, just look and see if it's a handmade paper. You'll know because it's a heck of a lot more expensive. So most of you will be working with machine-made paper. Heavens to Betsy, what other questions are there, Amber, that I can answer? Let me see. Can you line craft text? Kathy asks, can you line craft text? Yeah, you can, Kathy. You're going to need to put quite a good layer of PVA on here, though, to get it, and then line it. I don't line it with paper. I would line it with fabric. You'll need a good amount of PVA on here, and then a good amount of weight on it to glue it. It wouldn't be my favorite choice, to be honest. If I wanted to put fabric on here, I may even sew it. Like I might even sort of do some stitching around the edge and then in the middle. But yes, you can line craft text with fabric. I just haven't done it that often. What other questions are there, Amber? What do you mean by scrap of cover? Oh, okay, gotcha. Good question, Linda. It's for the little strap that we have here. So it can be the same fabric as the, this, I could use purple leather here, but I happen to have a little scrap of cork. What did I use on this one? Another piece of cork. So just like a 2-inch by, say, 4-inch little scrap of something to use as a little strap right there. Good question, Linda. Thanks for asking it. What other questions do we have? Can we use fabric double-sided interface to fuse the leather and fabric? Asked Tina. Excellent question. Yes, you can. I would use a medium weight interfacing to make sure that it's strong enough, and just use a low iron on the leather. You don't want anything kind of bad to happen to the leather. I'd probably put like a tea towel over it to protect it, or a silicone mat. But yes, absolutely, you can use interfacing. Just get one that's strong enough. So good question, Tina. I like it. What other questions are there? I have a few more in my list. Traveling love bugs. Well, that's just the best name. Can you use paper instead of fabric for the inside cover? For lining, if you mean for lining leather, I wouldn't. I've tried in the past, and it tends to crease and crack. It's not very attractive. I've tried it a few times, and it was okay, but it wasn't great, I have to say. So if you really would like to try it, maybe try it with a scrap or something, or a piece of, like a small piece of leftover leather, or, the edge. Try it and see what you think. But I don't really like the results when I do it, I have to say. Other questions before I answer more? How do you square pre-wash craft text? What a brilliant question, Rachel. It's actually in the videos. I remember doing, I pre-recorded these a week or so ago, but I will show you in the video. But there are several ways to do it. You can go in with a quilting ruler and square up, or I show you that method, and then you can also use like a little triangle or square tool like this to make sure that you get one square corner, and then you take it from there. But I promise you, I've got a detailed video on how to do that. So never fear. Don't cut your covers ahead of time if you are concerned about them not being square. Wait till day 2 when we do the covers. Good question, Rachel. Creating the memories. Will scoring your paper or craft text eliminate the worries with grain? Somewhat. So it helps a little bit, but I will say I've created a couple books with unwashed craft text where I've gone against the grain, and what you find is that the cover tends to see how this is closed. The cover tends to ping open like this. So it's not the end of the world, and scoring does help, but ideally you would go with the grain. But if you have to go against the grain, the scoring will help. You'll just find that it's a bit springy. So I guess the answer is somewhat it helps, but it doesn't get rid of the worry completely. What other? Yes, great question. So if you have 60-pound drawing paper, should you make more pages? Yes, you can. You can make a few more pages, Sue, if you would like to. I think I go over that on day 1. So let me see if I can remember. Let's have a look, shall we? So inside here, I have 80-pound drawing paper, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 8 pages. So with 60-pound watercolor paper, with 60-pound drawing paper, you could probably get away with 10 pages. So yeah, grab some more sheets if you would like to. You don't have to, but you certainly could. Great question, Sue. Could you recommend any vegan leathers? Well, I have to say craft text is often called a vegan leather. Or the cork fabric is also sometimes called a vegan leather. I don't think there's a product that I know of that is called vegan leather. So I would use an alternative like vinyl or one of these products. But if anyone else knows something that's labeled vegan leather, I'd be curious to know. And if you could let Christina know in the chat, that would be fabulous. What other questions are there anymore? If I use cork, can I line it with something else? If you use the cork fabric that I suggest from So Many Creations, then you don't need to. So there are 2 types. It comes lined with this beigey color, and then this is the black. This would be hard to add anything to. You could use fusible interface, and add some fabric, but I wouldn't. I would worry about the heat on the cork. I'm not sure white glue would work on here, so you could try it with a scrap and see what you think, but my instinct would be to not line it with anything. Lady Romana, another great name. I love all these names. Any more questions? Is that good? Okay. All right. I have a couple more that folks have asked about. What size needle do I need? You need, so I'm not going to show you my needles because I've got to bring them in. The size needle that you need is one that fits your thread. So I wouldn't buy bookbinding needles specifically. We've included a link below to my favorite ones, which are from Talus, and they're a number 1 or a number 18 needle. They have a blunt tip. You can use embroidery needles. So choose your thread first. So say you've got a wax linen thread you're working with. Look through your stash of embroidery needles and choose one whose eye fits the thread you have. Or if you don't have any, you need to go to the store, bring the thread you plan to use and just choose an embroidery needle whose eye is just big enough for the thread. Also, sashishko needles are very nice too. I was just doing some last night and I was looking at the sashishko needle, and it's nice and long, and the eyes are nice and they're well sized for bookbinding. So you could also use a sashishko needle, but don't get too hung up on what needles to use. And then also, what size hole do we need for the sewing holes in the cover right here? So about 1/16 of an inch or 2 millimeters is ideal. So you can use a Japanese screw punch if you have one with a 2 millimeter bit. You can use an awl like this, which is a little bit chunkier, or another type of awl. You could also use, what else could you use? A small hole punch if you have one, or a leather punch as well. Just keep in mind, a handheld hole punch is not going to be able to get sort of right down to here. So maybe something that you can use with a hammer as well. But look through what you have, and I bet you'll be able to find something within your stash. All right. What other questions do I have? Can I use signature wrappers? We talked about that. Watercolor pages, paper grain, write paper. I think I have answered all of the questions that I received. Were there any others, Amber? Oh my goodness. Let me switch the camera back around. That's rather nice that we don't have any more questions. There we go. Let's go back to FaceTime. Do you mind taking off that question, Amber, off the screen? I can't find it. Thank you, Mia. Well, thank you to everyone. Let me just look through the comments, see if you have given any cool things. I love this suggestion. Thank you, Amber. You can find elastic in the craft stores. I just think a standard hair tie will be too small. Good question. Yeah, the elastic that we use, I find in the kids section of, like, you know, where they do, like, they have those kind of plastic beads and like crafts for kids, like the little tongue depressors and everything. That's what I find my elastic. They're in bright colors. Or you can just go to the regular elastic and they have black and white, this kind of thin 1 millimeter cord. But I'll be showing you alternatives as well, so don't worry. All right, what else? Someone posted a link. All right, I love it. Thank you for all your recommendations on places to buy supplies. Keep them coming in the Facebook group. So if you have already joined the challenge or you plan to join the challenge, we do have a private Facebook group, which is just for challenge takers, and it's very active in there. So if you have any questions, there's going to be lots of people within that community to help answer it, as well as us. But we kind of like crowdsourcing these things because the more heads, the better. So just to remind you, we have the 5-day challenge is on May 22nd to May 26th. The price will go up on May 8th. So get in while you can. And remember, you do have lifetime access, and book club members receive it for free. So if you've paid for it, just shoot us an email right here at help@vintagepagedesigns.com. And if you've already joined but would like to gift it to a friend, you can also reach out to us and we can take care of that too, because some folks like to do that. They like to invite a friend or a niece, Daria, or someone else who you may think would enjoy it. All right, my friends, head on over to handmadebookclub.com to join the challenge if you haven't already. And a big thank you to Amber for being here today. Are there any final questions, Amber, before we head out? She's giving me the big thumbs up. Keep the questions coming, though, via email underneath this YouTube video if you're watching the comments, or if you're watching it in the Facebook group. And we are really, really looking forward to having you and to making these 3 books in 5 days, which I promise you is very, very manageable. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care, folks. Have a great day.